this presentation, I'm going to talk to you about the evolution of language. Anyone can see that language has changed over time. From 600 AD to present day, no matter what language is being spoken, it sounds different from then to now. There are 4 factors that play a role in inducing this language change: the psychological factor, physiological factor, systemic factor, and social factor. Brian D. Joseph says, language is affected psychologically just off the simple fact that it is produced somewhere in our brain. It is physiological because it is a production of sound using signs using our human body. Language is a system because it has its regularities and interacting components, and it is social because it exists in the interaction among members in social groups. I am going to focus on the psychological and social aspects of this evolution. I first want to consider the social aspect of why language has evolved. Language starts off by changing on a very small scale. Whether it's a group of friends in a town, a whole state, it all starts somewhere. And then over time, people start to pick up on the way the term is being used, and it becomes a part of our everyday speech. For example, you showed us the video, "Eyebrows on Fleek." Fleek was not a term very regularly known until that video went viral across the US. And now it is a term that is used with understanding across the US and even in many parts of the world. The Handbook of Linguistics stated that new words don't just pop up out of thin air. More often than not, specific terms get generalized and then in turn get new meanings or broader meanings from what they were originally intended to be. The example they give is in Central Ohio, amongst speakers in the 1960s, the term bean was used in baseball for when a hitter got hit in the head with a ball that was pitched to them. Somewhat 30 years later, and even now, the term bean means to be hit by a pitch anywhere. The term is now broader. It is no longer used to just say someone got hit with the pitch in the head, but now just hit with the pitch in general. But now I'm going to look into the psychological side of this and why this happens. To do so, first I'm going to try to the best of my ability to read 3 lines from 3 different time periods and their translations to today so that we can see the difference. Well, really, I'm only going to read 2 because I can't even pronounce or try to read the first line from 660. I'm going to try to put a subtitle of it in here so that you can see what it is, but I can't read it out loud. The translation is, "Now we ought to praise the guarding of the kingdom of heaven." The second, "Won that April with the shore suit," from the Canterbury Tales, 1400. Translate it to, "When April with its sweet showers." The third, "Tush never tell me, I take it much unkindly that thou, ago, who hast had my purse as if the strings were thine, shouldst known of this." Shakespeare, 1604. Translated to, "Bah, never tell me. I take it much unkindly that you, ago, who has had my purse as if it were the strings were yours, should know of this." I can barely get through each of those. Well, really, I couldn't even get through the first one, and the other 2 were very hard. And that is because my brain isn't wired or trained to read those vowel combinations. Over time, there has been changes in our phonology, morphology, and lexicon. These are all components that have to do with how language is produced within a particular system in our brains. It has to be correct or it doesn't make sense to us. This is why I couldn't read or had a very hard time reading them correctly. But how does this happen? The second article, which took a much different approach to the first, written by Chomsky, Hauser, and Fitz, took a scientific approach, and they hypothesized that us humans have an FOB, which is a unique human adaptation for language. As a whole, the FOB is highly complex and serves a function for communication with admirable effectiveness and eliminable genetic components. Because of this, natural selection is the only known biological mechanism capable of generating such functional complexes. Proponents think that natural selection is the thing that played the huge role in shaping the aspects of our FLB and FLN, and further, that many of these are without parallel to non-human animals. Although other animals may have this, the human version has been modified by the natural selection to the extent that it can reasonably be seen as constituting the novel traits such as social intelligence and being able to create the language that we have, the complex language systems that we have today. It's all because of natural selection, is what the hypothesis is saying, basically. To conclude, I want to draw a comparison to James's project, or his presentation, and the way that he spoke about animals communicating. The hypothesis does state that animals could have the FLB, just not as advanced or naturally selected as ours. So my comparison is that many of the animals that are genetically closer to us humans communicate in ways that are very similar to us. For example, the monkeys with the or many animals with the gestures, but monkeys in particular, like Nim, the several gorillas who have been able to pick up sign language and even communicate with us as a species, shows that there is some form of natural selection happening. But is it going to continue to evolve? And to conclude, I want to touch on James's James's topic of animals communicating. The hypothesis states that animals may have the FLB, it's just not as evolved as ours, to the point where they have the social intelligence to create a language and speak amongst each other. But animals who are genetically closer to us do communicate in ways that are very similar to us. They use the gestures. The monkeys have been able to pick up sign language and even communicate with us humans. So is it that they are still evolving and becoming closer and closer to being able to form this language as a complex, or has their natural selection stopped? I don't know, but it's something to think about.